Here's a category of lenses that are unlike any other. They will give you beautiful blurry backgrounds, dreamy vintage charm, and best of all, they're not even expensive. Welcome to the weird world of adapting vintage projector lenses. I just went down this large rabbit hole myself, and I want to take you along with me and teach you everything that you need to know to get started adapting your own vintage projector lenses today. This is a projector lens. These lenses are not created for cameras, but for projectors and have been used for decades, meaning that there are loads of them out there. The main appeal of adapting a projector lens like this one to a modern camera today is that for a relatively affordable price, there is a lot of light that is let in. Look how large that glass element is. And that contributes to the shallow depth of field or that beautiful blurry background. To get that same effect on a modern lens, we might have to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And we can do that with a projector lens for much, much less. Now, of course, there's no such thing as a free lunch, as they say. And so there are flaws with projector lenses, as you'll see. They're nowhere near as tack sharp as their modern counterparts, of course. And there's other optical flaws that they have because they were never meant for taking images in the first place. But you can think of all these flaws as character and work within the limitations. And I think you can get some amazing effects. And once again, they're cheap, so let's just do it. Now, there are many methods of adapting these lenses to your modern camera. Let me just show you the dead simplest way I've found. And along the way, I'll point out some other options as we go. I'm also linking to a bunch of great videos and articles in my description that can help you explore this topic even further. There are three main problems to solve when adapting projector lenses. First, the big obvious problem is that projector lenses don't have a normal camera mount. In fact, some don't have a mount at all. They can just be a straight metal tube like this one. In my case, I picked up this vintage Soviet projector lens, and like many others, it's just a straight barrel at the rear. The second problem is that most projector lenses have no way to focus. Focusing on a normal lens is achieved by moving it further or closer to the camera's sensor, but projector lenses are one solid, immovable piece. And the third problem is one that I'll bring up later. Let's solve the mounting and focusing problems first. What we're trying to achieve here is really not overly complicated. What we want to do is create something that can hold this lens up to the camera like this at the right distance so that the lens can focus onto the camera sensor and then move back and forth to focus at different distances. And the cheapest way to do this, which costs almost nothing, is to 3D print an adapter. Here's a very simple adapter that I made for this particular projector lens just so I could start playing with it. On the rear, it's an adapter for the Pentax K-mount, one of my cameras I was using it on. And on the front, I simply made it an open barrel that was the size of the projector lens barrel. Now the lens can slide in and out to focus. And this totally works and solves the first two problems. It's just a little sloppy and requires constant holding on to the lens, which could fall out at any time if I tip the camera forward too far. A more advanced 3D print like this fits into the lens more tightly, and focusing works by these two parts rotating on the threads. And this is how modern lenses focus as well. And I really liked this method, but I found that designing and printing threads that rotate really nicely was a bit trickier than I thought. And so far, I haven't finished a working project I can share with you. I would love to one day design a universal free adapter that you could use for any projector lens in 3D print. But my list of things I want to design is pretty long now, so bear with me if that never happens. Hopefully it does. But if you're willing to spend just a little bit more money, this next method is by far the most professional version. It is super sturdy and doesn't require a 3D printer or any serious modifications. But first, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, Bai. One good place to find projector lenses for sale is from Bai, the sponsor of this video. Bai is a website for shopping anything you can imagine from Japan. I like to think of it like thrifting camera gear from Japan without actually having to be there. And how it works is behind the scenes, Bai gives you access to Japanese-only listings from sites like Mercari or Yahoo Japan and many others. The advantage of Bai that I found is being able to get uncommon or even rare cameras and lenses for much less than you would here in my country. And in some cases, cameras and lenses that were only originally sold in Japan and are impossible to find anywhere else. When you purchase an item on Bai, the seller ships it to Bai's warehouse in Japan. Bai then checks the package and then ships it off to you. And that's why Bai is called a Japanese proxy service. This does mean that you're paying twice for shipping, but I've always found that the rates are reasonable, so you just need to budget that in and make sure you're still getting a good deal. First-time users will get 10% off their first purchase by using the link in my description, and thanks to Bai for sponsoring this video. Here's the best solution I've found, and it involves all these pieces. But don't worry, it's pretty affordable and it's not as complicated as it looks. There is one slight modification you might have to do depending on your projector lens and the camera mount you're adapting to. You might need to saw off extra metal tubing that's at the rear of the lens, and this allows you to get the lens closer to the camera body to allow you to focus on distant subjects. And at least with my lens and adapting it to my Pentax K DSLR, this was necessary. I just used a metal handsaw and I did a terrible job, but whatever, it works. Now to actually attach the lens and focus it, here's what I ordered. The first adapter is what's called a clamp adapter. And this is a clever adapter that slides over the barrel of the projector lens and then clamps down using these 3 set screws. And the screws don't touch your lens directly. It's all through this kind of rubber ring that's on the inside. You buy the clamp adapter whose size fits the diameter of your lens barrel. This gives us a really solid grip onto our lens and then gives us a standard screw thread so we can attach our other adapters. I bought this clamp adapter from RAF Camera or RAF Camera. I'm super happy with it. Fantastic quality, but it is a little on the expensive side. I also bought this cheaper one from China, but you do get what you pay for, so it's up to you. Next, we can solve the focusing issue by buying a helicoid adapter. A helicoid adapter allows you to rotate the barrel and the inner section extends and retracts to focus your lens. And the 3 pieces of information you need to know to order one of these is what thread the receiving end uses, what thread the mount side uses, and then the minimum, maximum, and total range in millimeters that the helicoid travels. Technically, to achieve infinity focus, you do need to get these distances right based on your lens, your camera mount, and the distance that this can focus. But because this lens is pretty forgiving, I just bought a helicoid with a relatively short 25 millimeter minimum distance and then a large 30 millimeter range for maximum flexibility. And this works great. I can focus to infinity, past infinity actually a little bit, and then some really close-up distances. My helicoid, which I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, you can make fun of it, but my helicoid adapter mounts directly to the M65 thread on my clamp adapter, and the rear on my helicoid adapter is also M65. And the next step is simple. We just need a step down ring from M65 to M42. And M42 is a more standard thread for your camera lenses, which then that allows us to adapt a normal lens adapter from the camera of your choice to M42 mount. I have one more adapter, one more upgrade that we'll make to this in a minute. But first, let's just admire at how well this works. This setup with the lens feels super sturdy, and I can confirm that that clamp adapter works great, even with this large, heavy lens. I've walked around with the camera strapped over my shoulder and the lens, hanging upside down, and there's been no issues at all. And the focusing range is huge with this big helicoid adapter. So there's plenty of room for infinity focus and close-up work. And while the focusing ring is a little bit tough to move with all the other pieces going on, it does work. It's just not going to be super good for fast focusing situations. Now, like I said, there is one more problem with this lens, and it may only apply to some people, but let's take care of it. One more problem that this lens has, we can attach it to the camera, we can focus it with a helicoid, but we do not have any way to change the aperture of the lens. Projector lenses were not designed to change aperture. They're not meant for cameras. So it's just stuck wide open, which this is a cool effect and, it looks beautiful and dreamy, and maybe that's all you want to shoot it with, and then you're done. But if you do want to change the aperture for creative effect, for exposure reasons, if you're shooting in really bright sunlight, things like that, you're going to want an aperture. And thankfully, there's also a really simple way to do this as well. This nifty gadget right here is an adjustable aperture for lenses that you can add to any lens. And this particular one is M42 to M42. So you just add it here to the stack of adapters and you now have yourself an adjustable aperture. Check this out. How cool is that? Now, there are a couple of caveats with this. If you do attach this to your stack of adapters, it's once again going to change the distance from your camera. So that could affect affinity focusing. You just kind of have to do the math or just play with it to figure that out. And then the other thing is even wide open. So if we open that all the way wide, that distance is measured when I bought it. I forget what it is off the top of my head, but that is going to control the aperture. That opening and the focal length, the combination of that is your aperture. That opening, even wide open, is smaller than it was originally. So you just kind of have to play with that. That's going to change your effective aperture, even wide open. If you want more details on this specific lens and my reviews and thoughts on it, then go ahead and check out my already live video over on my newly launched Patreon. I'm going to be doing extended cuts of camera reviews and lenses there, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Check it out. Enjoy adapting cool lenses. And until next time, as always, happy snapping.